Thank you all for joining us. I'm Megan Doherty, the director of the Museum of the White Mountains. As we gather today, we're all on Indigenous lands. Those of us at the Museum of the White Mountains are on Ndakina, which is the ancestral and present homelands of the Abenaki and W8banaki peoples. We're grateful for their stewardship of these lands and waterways. For those of you on Zoom, we'll put some links in the chat where you can learn more about the Indigenous histories of your place at native-land.ca, as well as about the Abenaki peoples of Northern New England through the Musée des Abenaki in Quebec. This summer's exhibition of baskets and borers is part of our ongoing efforts to learn more about the continued Indigenous presence in our region. And it's not an exaggeration to say that this exhibition would not have happened without the support of today's speaker. Over a year ago, I reached out to Daniel Nolett, who's the executive director of the Abenaki Band Council of Odanak, to learn more about the basket-making families he'd discussed in a presentation at UVM in the spring of 2022. In that talk, he'd shown the photograph that is the front of the postcard on display upstairs. His talk and that postcard were the springboard for this exhibition. And I'm so grateful for his willingness to talk with me and for the welcome he gave me on my 2 visits to Odanak in preparation for this exhibition. Please join me in welcoming Daniel. Get your slides.
Thank you, Megan. Plymouth, New Hampshire, Ndakina. Tanyana Nolett Nia. Kinodo Kawawen no W8banaki Odanak Tbald8zimek. Ne Nuegodam and I Yotalin Speukio my presentation. So first of all, I welcomed you here at Plymouth, New Hampshire on our traditional territory and on Ndakina. My name is, like Megan said, Daniel Nolett. I'm the executive director of the Odanak Band Council, but today would like to say the local Odanak government, and I'll try to explain a little bit more about this in my presentation. So I'm really happy to be here with you today to explain a little bit where we come from and what we're doing, and in terms of preserving the ash tree and preserve also our culture and our history. So let's begin my presentation. So I'll be talking about the ancestral Waban-Aki occupation of the territory before, during, and after European presence. Little table of contents of my presentation. I'll talk about the W8banaki Nation, W8banakiak's ancestral territory in Ndakina, the St. Francis Indian Mission, which is called today Odanak, and a little bit of the archaeology, the diggings, the research we've been doing on the Ndakina, and finish with the little presentation on the black ash. So again, Odanak is located here on the banks of the St. Francis River. It's over there? It is on the St. Francis River, close to Pierreville. So this is the St. Francis River. In Abenaki, it's called Asegantuk. It means the river of the empty cabins. And further east, 50 kilometers east, you see Wolinak right here on the Big Conco River, Wolinaktuk. It means river at the bay. It's south of Trois-Rivières, 3 rivers on the St. Lawrence River. So I was saying that, 500 people live today at Odanak. Out of 500, 400 are Abenakis, and 100 roughly are spouses and non-Abenaki that resides in the reservation. And we have a total membership of 3,800 members. So roughly about 2,800 live off of the reserve, either in uptown in Pierreville. We have some live in Trois-Rivières, Nicolette, Montreal, in the United States as well, and some even in Europe. So roughly 400 Abenaki reside at Odanak today, and 2,800 off reserve. In Wolinak, we talk about a total membership of about 700 Abenakis, about 150 live on the reserve today, and roughly 450, 500 live off of the reserve in Wolinak. So a total membership, both Odanak and Wolinak, of close to 4,000 Abenaki. Here's a picture on the top left. This is from across the Bécancour River. You could see across the river, that's Wallinak. You can see the chapel on the top left here. And hidden behind the trees here are the Grand Council office. And right here, that's the business that's owned by the chief, Michel Bernard today. And further, the picture on the further down, that's the picture of the Anna and Agnes Panazzi, the two sisters that are making baskets. And to the right, the gentleman standing next to the totem pole, that's Théophile Panazzi. Picture taken at Intervale, New Hampshire in 1961 at Joseph Laurent's camp. Unfortunately, the totem pole is not there today, but the plaque is still there. If you go to Intervale next to the railroad, the cabins are still there. What's left of the cabins are still there of Joseph Laurent's camp that was established there in 1884. You would see the plaque of, where Théophile Panazzi carved the big totem pole there in 1961. The W8banaki Nation, it's located in the northeast of America across southern Quebec, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts. The traditional land, we call it Ndakina. Just a bit of explanation of Abenaki. I don't want to lose anybody here. Akik means land, na at the end. Akina, ours, and Ndakina, our land. But in Abenaki, we have the we inclusive and the we exclusive. Let's say I talk to you, I say, this is our house. It's everyone else but yours house. It's our house, but not yours. If I say Ndakina, Ndakina, it means our land, including you, the one I'm talking to. You've probably seen this before in Vermont. There's an organization called Ndakina. Ndakina means our land as well, but our land inclusive. And Ndakina in that way it's written in Ndakina, it's our land, but not yours. Different groups making up the W8banaki Nation, each living alongside the major rivers of the Ndakina through the 16th and 17th century. I'll come back to this in another slide. And we're part of the Algonquian Nation. It's basically linguistic family groups composed of perhaps if you're familiar in Canada, the Cree Nation, the Innu, the Atzimek Nation, and Abenaki, the Maliseet and Mi'kmaq, part of the Algonquian Nation, opposed to the Iroquoian nations, like the Mohawks, the Hurons, Onondaga, Oneida, Seneca. Those are Iroquoians. So they are divided in these groups by language, family. So we're part of the Algonquin Nation, because our language is close and related. And we were moving villages. We were semi-nomad. We had semi-permanent longhouses and wigwam. So we were traveling through the season, and depending where we were at and what we were meant to harvest or hunt or fish in that area, we would travel through the seasons. And we were gardeners, and we practiced the gardening and hunting, as well as fishing and gathering medicinal plants, and also picking berries. So as horticultural gardening, we're basically gardening squash, beans, and corn. W8banakiak, that's plural for W8banaki. W8banakiak's traditional land and Ndakina. I just did a little bit of explanation. Al Namba Waganda means the way of the human being speaks. En doa, non doa, I speak. Al Namba is a human being. That's how we told ourselves, being Abenaki, Al Namba. I'm a human being. Like EU, like Innu, the EU, the Cree, it means in their language, a human being. Innu for the Montagnais, and it means a human being. So Al Noba in our language, it means a human being. The way of the human being speaks. Land is understood also in terms of river sheds and tributaries. So I'll be explaining a little bit more in another slide. So a non-static, but a cultural understanding of space based on connection between people and traditional knowledge and use of the familial places for settlements, meaning that we have several toponyms on the territory. You're probably familiar in New Hampshire with Winnipesaukee. That's the name changed 2 times, but in Abenaki, it's W8banaki. It means we're in the way around the best lake, Aki land. So it's the lake around the land. W8banaki, Winnipesaukee. That's one example. So all the tribes, all the nations were determined the name by the river they were living on. So we're Abenakis, but for my community, we're Alsagontugueak because we lived on the Alsagontaguk, on the Alsagontuk River. So if you were a Winnipesaukee, you means you were staying at the Winnipesaukee Lake, and so on and so on. So we knew the place, we knew the territory in that matter, and we lived off of the land as well. Interactions maintained by high mobility through rivers and lakes in connection with each other. So we were connected amongst each other. At Odanak at times, there was probably 10 to 12 different tribes that composed Odanak. We had Saco members and from people from Norwich Walk. So we were traveling through the territory. So we had connections with several tribes in Ndakina. So here's a map without the boundaries. So the east limit, you can see Penobscot. It's Penobscot River and akik the Etchemin River on the far east. The west limit is the Merrimack River and Massasoit-Tuk, Richelieu River, Lake Champlain, Petawabac. And then Ndakina is surrounded by territories of the Wolastoqiyik, Wasipiko, that's the Maliseet, and the Penobscot Nation, and the Yaga Nation, that's the Mohawk Nation on the west boundary, New York State and Eastern. So we're surrounded by these nations. And you see the highlighted the waterways. Those were the main highways we traveled by the rivers and lakes. So through different portage. So these are the main highways of our traditional territories. Yes.
I've heard that this area right here was called Pemijuesak. Does that?
Pemagwasit.
Maybe that's how you're supposed to say it. Not the river itself, but the area around it. That's kind of homeland or people that hung out around here. That they call the area. Whatever you said.
Pemagwasit.
Pemijuesak.
Yeah. True that. Yeah. Establishment of the San Francisco Indian Mission. So as we knew the territory well, with the war increasing, the fight, the conflict between the British Crown and the French Crown here on this continent, there was a plan to establish a definite mission at what is called today Odanak in 1700. Because we had great knowledge of the territory, and the San Francisco River also connects with the Connecticut River. So they established Odanak, the French government at the time, the mission at Odanak at 1700. And we did some over the years radiocarbon dating. There were sites. Through times we did archaeological diggings, even at Odanak, and we were able to find that sites that they were occupied between the year 1520 and 1640, and there were 2 other sites that show occupation from 1660 and 1800, and 2 others 1710 and for sure definitely 1910. We've been there, like I just mentioned, since at least the mission. Just for say, the mission is actually they built a church and started to build a village. So that's the establishment of the mission. However, there was proof and documentation of the Abenaki presence in Sokoke since at least 1660. So But as you can see on the slide, with the further research that we did after, then we can know for sure that we found, at least in one area at Odanak on the riverbed of St. Francis River, we found an arrowhead dated 4,000 years. And shows every findings, shows continuity of occupation, and you'll see more on the next slide, what we mean by this. So establishment of the missions in 1700, basically, and Odanak later in 1708. About 1,000 Abenakis were at Odanak in 1700, and about 500 in Odanak in 1708. So you can see on the map there, Odanak and Odanak, basically we were established there as the missions to defend the French colonies in Trois-Rivières at the time, in Three Rivers. So to defend them from the invasion of the Iroquois and also the British. So again, like I mentioned, St. Francis River connected to the Connecticut River, so and close also to the Lake Champlain and Hudson River. So we were well placed there to defend the French colony. So what you see there on this slide, you see the yellow pictograms, the like little houses. This shows historical presence of the Abenaki. So means after or at the contact and after the contact with the Europeans. But when you look at the map, you see the orange brownish little houses. That's pre-contact. So you can see further up north where Odanak is. You could see some of them darker ones. It means that presence of the Abenaki, at least is pre-contact. As well as here, this is Lake Memphremagog we were referring earlier, and this is Lake Champlain, and this is Ombago Lake and Moosehead Lake further east. So you see those brown ones. That shows through archaeological research and digging findings of artifacts dated pre-contact, and you see the red teepees or red triangles. That means continuous occupation of the territory. You see have some here up here at Odanak. You see some here on that. That's the Etchemin River I was referring to earlier, and this is Chaudière, not Chaudière. Hang on. This is the Bécancour River, and this is St. Francis River right here. This is Yamaska River, and this is this Richelieu River and Lake Champlain. And the yellow dots that you see further south here, way along, this is Lake Champlain. Yellow dots, it means unknown, inconnu, unknown. It doesn't mean that we don't know what, what people live there. It's just simply explaining that there was no thorough research done. They did find something, unfortunate findings by anybody. Let's say you walk down a river or by the lake and you found an artifact, and that was reported, but not really thoroughly researched. In the next couple of years, it is our will to further extend those research and document whatever was found, especially around Lake Champlain. But you can see up, this is Missisquoi Bay on the Lake Champlain. This is pretty much well documented. This is, well the research, but we need to conduct more research down here alongside of Lake Champlain. But it shows continuity that every findings pretty much with the house shape like pictogram means that the same people roam through that territory, meaning us. In this slide, now I'm going more towards the black ash usage. You see here this pictogram. That's where we used to pick the black ash. This is north of the Laurentians. This is around Kitigan-Zibi, Maniwaki. Odanak is right here. So we were able to pick some black ash, get some around Odanak area. And all of these little pictograms that you can see here as far west as Lake Michigan, all of these pictograms are places where families of Odanak spent times to sell their baskets. So we would be going and collect and get some ash pound it, machine it, and make it so we could then transform it into baskets afterwards. Even up to the East Coast, down as far, southeast here is in New Jersey, New York, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont, and even Ontario. So black ash, malax. It's kind of hard to say, malax. The description, I will talk about a bit of the description of the black ash, the traditional usage and cosmology, threats, Ndakina work, history, and our project. So what you see on this picture in pink, all of the black dots is where we could find ash trees, So we could see not so much farther north than close to here, what's this called today, Bécomo, on the north shore in Quebec. Well, all the way down from Bécomo, all the way down even to here to the States. So all the black dots where you could find the ash tree. So in French, we call it feuille noire, black ash. Here you use the term brown ash, but it's the same. There are three kinds of ash. There's the black or brown, the white, and the red ash. So we use the black ash to make the basket. You could see, like you could tell, an ash tree by its foliage. You could see the leaves divided into leaflets, and each leaflet was opposite to one another, except for the one on the tip, and was composed of 5 to 11 leaflets. And you can see here on the middle the seeds of the black ash and a black ash tree on the right. You could tell from one or the other, at least the black ash or the brown ash, the bark is kind of smoothie, spongy, compared to the white ash is more hard and so. And the particularity of the black ash, it may produce seeds on a cycle of 5 to 9 years. So on average, every 7 years. So that must make it special and makes it more vulnerable to what's affecting the species today, the emerald ash borer, because it does not produce seeds every year or every other year like most of the trees today. Black ash, malax. Through times, we used the black ash to make baskets. That was the Tupperware of the Abenaki of the time. We use them as containers. When we pick berries, we would use them for storage, or to carry stuff. We use the basket as Tupperware. And through times has the tourism developed, emerged. The tourists became fond of our basket. So with the time, our basket became more fancy. So you see on the top here, a basket made, like we started to dye the splints. We incorporated, other decorations like sweetgrass. What you see here on the picture, this is sweetgrass. Not only does it, add some color, some texture, but also a nice smell. I don't know if you ever smelled sweetgrass, but it smells really, really good. And here on the other one, the porcupines, or like the picks that you see there on there, we call them kawis in Abenaki. It means like a spike. So this is a fancy basket. On the picture you see on the left there, these are the hands of my Aunt Dodo, my mother's older sister. So she was a well-renowned basket maker at Odanak. She's passed away now, but I think this is a really nice picture, and I recognize her hands and her nails. And the big basket there on the right, that was made by my niece Charlotte. She made it about 2-3 years ago. She made it when she was 21 years old. So this is really nice work of art. So it shows a little bit, and I'll explain how we kind of make them out of the ash. to talk a bit about this cosmology, we did this, you know, at the Ndakina department, a little pamphlet, a little flyer to explain a little bit, you know, what the importance of the black ash to our culture. In our mythology, we believe that Tbald8zimek, our creator and great spirit, wanted to create human beings. So what they did is they used the bark and the inside of the tree, the wood itself, to make the man and the woman. And what they did after is after putting a spirit into the tree, they shot arrows of life at the tree, and a woman and a man came out of the ash tree. So we believe that we Abenaki came from the ash tree. Like you, we know it's a well-known fact that you come from cabbages. So
Yeah.
we all come from a place. So Abenaki's from ash trees, and you come from cabbage. So so what we would do is, and the best time of the year to get the logs would be in June, after the sap and the leaves are grown. We collected the logs, and we would beat them, you know, with the back of the axe, like this, like you show on the slide. So you basically detach the edges of the tree here by pounding, you know, on the rhythm, you know, on the log. So, and yeah, and then you would then use tools to machine them. You would then resplit each year to make it thinner, and then you would, you know, pull it through another a tool to polish it, to make it smooth, and also use another tool to split it, you know, in different, you know, width. So depending of what kind of basket you want to make, a big one, strong one, or more delicate one, or smaller one. So you would use different tools that were developed by us through times. And particularity also of the black ash makes it even more vulnerable. Like I mentioned, produces seeds every 5 to 9 years, on average 7 years, but also needs a lot of moisture, a lot of humidity. So it grows in swampy area, and also needs shade and sun. So it's really particular, and it needs also some calcium and so forth and so forth. So it's really, really peculiar and particular tree. So it's really sensitive. So that's why it's also sensitive to the ash borer. The ash borer, as you know, emerald ash borer appeared in the United States in the late 1990s. And the projections are dire for the ash tree, the ash trees, yeah. So this little pest, you know, came from Asia. So what we did, the Department of Environment Canada conducted a vast consultation up in Canada, up in Quebec, and in collaboration with the University of Laval in Quebec City, University of Quebec, du Québec en Outaouais at Gatineau Hall, Ottawa area, and the First Nations of Quebec and Labrador Sustainable Institution, along with also the Mohawk Council of Ganawagi. We have done, you know, a lot of, I guess, presentation at the government, because during the consultation, the Government of Canada and Environment Canada has is trying to say, well, we are going to have to sooner or later put the ash tree on the endangered list species. And if that happens, the Government of Canada does not recognize the sales of, let's say, the baskets made out of ash splints as a traditional right. So if they do put the species, the ash, on the endangered species, we will no longer be allowed to use the black ash to make baskets and to sell them afterwards. So we will be losing a great part of our culture. One fact that I've go back a few slides when I mentioned when the emergence of the tourism, you know, the basket making at Odanak from the year 1870 till the 1920s, basket making and the sale of the baskets was the main source of living of families at Odanak. when I mentioned about the territories, from the 1870s to the 1920s, the families would be making all winter long, making baskets. Every family, every household would making basket, and when summer would come, vacation time would come, every family would leave. The village was almost empty during the summertime. So they traveled by plane, by train. They would make all of the basket and at the end make a huge trunk, a big trunk out of ash splints to carry the basket and bring it into the train and leave for their family territory wherever they went to. For instance, my family, my great grandfather, they would be going to St. Albans, Vermont, and his relatives, his aunt and uncle, would go a little further up, Highgate Spring, Vermont. And you had also the Watsos and the Bomswin family going as well on the shores of Lake Champlain. Here in New Hampshire, I mentioned earlier, Joseph Laurent's family at Intervale, they had their camp at least from 1884 till at least his son Stephen Laurent kept it open till 1994. And others went as far east as Maine, like Nolett family, Alexandre Nolett, he went to Algonquin, Maine. We have also records here in New Hampshire. Robert Nolett and his family came to Bethlehem, New Hampshire. So every family had their place to sell their craft. So, and it was a big thing. And in the fall, coming September, October, when every family was coming back to the community, it was common for every family to go up to the train station to see who was coming back and to hear family stories. What happened? How the summer went? How good was the season? Did they sell all the baskets or not? And so on and so on. That was the way of living for at least 1870 till the 1920s. After the crisis, for sure, the industry of the basket making went down like everything else. So they had a hard time. Later, the government of Canada created a co-op. So the government would buy all of the baskets made by the Abenakis and pay them. So it was some sort of a way to keep all of the family alive, like to feed them. And to keep the culture and the practice also alive. And yet today it's still preserved. I know the museum here has put up an exhibit on the basket making at Odanak. So today is still present. Like my aunt, my mother teach the younger generations how to make baskets. So we keep the tradition alive. So that's why we fight hard with the government and our neighbors, First Nations neighbors, nation neighbors, fight hard to preserve the black ash and to keep the government to put him on the endangered species, to at least try to push this state further back as much as possible. So that's why we collaborate with them. And we have an environmental department. We have 5 biologists that work full-time for the Bend office, the Bend Council. And 2 of them at least are working full-time on this issue of preservation of the black ash. So we conducted also, you see, Assemblée Citoyenne means a public assembly at Odanak, and we had extended, even on Zoom online meetings with our members that are not residing on the reserve to get their point of views on the situation and to let them know of where we're going with this and what we're working on to preserve again and protect the black ash. So we have conducted also a research on in Quebec. You see from 2021 and 2023, you see on the picture where you see the yellow or orange circle. There are places where we located black ash trees. So you see here Odanak today. And so we have documented this, and we know with the insecticide that they have developed, the last couple of years against we think it's effective against the emerald ash borer. We have injected some of the trees that you see on the map there of the medicine, the insecticide, to see how it works and how we could hope to survive and to preserve and rescue some of the trees, but because most of them, as you can imagine, are affected by the emerald ash borer. And we've been doing a lot of gathering of the seeds. I was talking about some of the biologists. My younger brother works for the department as a wildlife technician, and he and his co-workers have been gathering, collecting the seeds and working with the University of Laval to preserve them and to do some seedling and then replant them and then get trees growing and then trying to preserve them in the areas where there are no yet ash borer and see how we can further extend our research. But we've been doing that the last year and a half, collecting a lot of seeds. So on a multi-year project, our goal is, work to conservation for the conservation of the black ash. Again, seedling gathering, sapling, that's what it's referring to. You replant the seed and so make the tree grows, sapling production. And we're reviewing our forestry practices and also conduct, research with the local forestry industry in Quebec to see how they can modify their practices. And because it wasn't long ago, the ash tree is not for the forest industry. It's not a plus value. It's not worthy. I mean, it's not like maple. It's not like oak tree. It's like they would basically cut down their ash trees because it was a nuisance to let place, of the more honorable, tree species. So just to again teach them, why they should preserve ash trees if they have some on their land, and so forth, and conduct again field inventory and control the emerald ash borer as much as possible. And also another goal is to keep the traditional practice alive and to even declare Black Ash Week. We're still working on it. I mean, to make it a symbol. Again, like I said earlier in my presentation, we come from the ash tree, so we want to keep our tradition and our culture alive as much as possible, and facilitate the exchange and collaboration also with other partners, and along the partners, First Nations also hold gatherings. And again, the more we speak about it, the more we make people aware of the situation, then the more we work on this, the more we think the better chances are to get a goal, achieve our goals. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation, pretty much on time. So at this point, I don't know if you had any questions.
I'm wondering whether the recent fame of the Passamaquoddy basket weaver Jeremy Fry.
That's the catalog I showed you upstairs.
Can that be used to help spread the word? Because I think even though they're not traditional baskets, they're so beautiful that people, and there's actually videos of him doing all those things you showed of making the ash, that might excite people and help them try to preserve black ash wherever they are.
Raise awareness. People often misinterpret. I mean, they see a basket, they think it's made out of other materials. They don't know that it's made of ash tree. I mean, yeah, the more we talk about it, I mean, the more we put forth, an artist's work, such as his. I mean, make it public and make it public knowledge that this is what is still used for. And I mean, yeah, you were referring to the old ways of using the basket. I mean, as like I mentioned, Tupperware used, and then today used more like for tourism, fancy. I mean, but still, I mean, it is important that we preserve this, and the more artists are involved, the more public awareness is raised among the people. Then I think, yeah, we can all work together on this, and the more we talk about it, the more efforts, and the government would put more money, more dollars into it as well. Because if nobody talks about it, the government it's not important. So we have other issues, we have other priorities. I believe so. Thank you.
Yeah, and for those of you on Zoom, I don't know if everyone heard the question, but it was about the exhibit that's at the Portland Museum of Art right now. That's showcasing Jeremy Fry's work that it's going to be in Portland till September 14th, much like our exhibition. And then you were talking about the Make the Basket, that's the trunk. So at the Farnsworth in Rockland, Maine, they have an exhibit that's about kind of one family's coming every summer to a spot really close to Rockland. And in the display is the trunk, like the basket trunk. So there's a basket that definitely my daughter could have fit in, that they have filled with other baskets that really shows that. And again, you know, another basket exhibit to go see this summer, although that one's up until January, so you have a little more time. But I do, and a number of people have asked me if I knew that all these other places were doing basket exhibits too, and I didn't, but I think, and someone asked me, you know, why were there so many? And I think there is this sense of urgency, you know, that it's everywhere now. The Emerald Ash Borer is, you know, it's maybe not be in every county in Maine, but
It's coming.
it's coming, and that there's a real sense of urgency. And so there was a question in the chat about what is your relationship to ash trees?
Personally,
Yeah.
but see, my younger brother, he works for the environmental department. He works on the studying of the ash tree, but he's also an ash pounder. So, and before him, my grandfather was an ash pounder. My mother is a basket maker. My 4 aunts were basket maker as well. Both my grandmothers were basket makers as well on my mother's and my father's side. So we're pretty close. My family, myself, not personally me, I've never, you know, used, well, personally, when I was a young kid, I would braid, you know, sweetgrass to help my mom and my aunts and my grandmother to make the basket. But personally, I've never, you know, I'm in my position. I'm in control to say, well, listen, we should invest some of the budget of a local government, our Grand Council, to conduct some research on this and to prioritize this amongst the work that, you know, we do at the band office. Oh,
Now,
yeah.
have you taken any of Annette's workshops? You made a basket with Annette?
No, but my daughters though.
Okay.
I got
okay.
3 daughters. My 3 daughters know how to make basket though. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were part of the workshops.
Good,
Yeah.
good. And so then we have another question. It says, have you, yeah, so the question asker said, so you defend ash? And
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, we had a meeting with conservation representative from the state of Maine in November at Odanak, and we had another one in earlier in May in Odanak with conservation organization from Vermont. And one of the main topics was ash, you know, issue. And yeah, we have starting a collaboration with state organization or I mean, local organization in the states that work already on the issue of the ash. Yeah, we have started a collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're reading the question there. Maybe you weren't, but it was going there. So the other question in the chat was, have you been collaborating with US governmental agencies to preserve and protect black ash and to protect access for the use of arts, cultural transfer practices? And if so, can you talk a little bit about those? So can you talk a little bit more about those? Or if, I mean, I know that some of the folks on Zoom are from some of the conservation organizations in the state. Are there?
In my position, like I mean, being executive director, I touch a lot of subject. However, we have, like I mentioned, an environmental department, and also we have the Bureau of the Ndakina at our tribal council. They're the ones who are more in contact with those organizations. I have not personally, I've met with them, I've welcomed them, but then I let our people, our staff, our experts, you know, discuss some more. But yeah, I would suggest to send your information to Megan, and we'll be in contact to make sure that probably we have met before, or you have met with our people, or if you have not, then I'll make sure that I'll put you in contact with our environmental department and also the Ndakina office.
Yeah, great. And yeah, I'm happy to connect whoever wants and whoever wants to help figure out more ways to protect.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Other Other questions in person or on Zoom? Yeah,
You may not be the expert on this, but from our porch, we can see some dead black or brown ash trees. Are there things that one should do if you can see that, even though they're not on our land? To make sure that, well, first of all, once they're dead, there's no more.
No.
Or it doesn't matter in terms of, they're not gonna spread the disease. Or are they?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, the ash borer, I mean, lives off the, you know, the live tree. I mean, once the tree is dead, they move to another one.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, but a tree, if it's less than 30% of the tree is affected, you could still, you know, like we talked about the insecticide,
Yeah.
you could still inject it and hope maybe to preserve it. But it would have to be less than 30% of the tree affected. And normally when you see a tree, an ash tree, it starts from the middle branches, the top middle branches, you see, when you start seeing leaves, this is a signal that then the ash borer is probably already has started to affect the tree. And then it comes down. The last ones are the bottom external branches that, you know, you would see, you know, that would still have leaves on them. Yeah.
and the New Hampshire Forest, the Division of Forests and Lands Forest Health Program. Bill Davidson is the person that I've worked with for the exhibition. And the website is very easy to remember. It's NH Bugs. Because they're interested in forest health more broadly, but they have lots of great resources on emerald ash borer as one of the many, unfortunately, many forest pests that are affecting our forests. So that's another great source for information as well.
Anybody interested in knowing more about our culture, our history, and our traditions, we'd like to invite you all this upcoming weekend, July 20th and 21st. It's our annual powwow. And I'd like to mention that Odanak has the oldest powwow in Quebec, First Nations communities. We had the first one in 1960, and this year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be our 62nd because of the pandemic. There was 2 years, 2 summers that we didn't have any powwow. So I guess, if I'm not mistaken, the 62nd powwow. So upcoming this Saturday and Sunday. So come up to Odanak and visit us.
And there's a new exhibit at the museum.
Yes, since June 21st, we've launched a new permanent exhibit at the museum at Odanak. So yeah, come to see this at the same time. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again. I appreciate your coming down and
It was my pleasure.
sharing this information with us.
Anytime you invite me, I'll be coming.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you all for joining us.